the response of the president of the country, President Ramaphosa, to SONA 2021, the debate by opposition parties. We know he was slammed actually by many of the opposition parties with regards to the fifth State of the Nation address. We joined on the line this morning by Professor Amanda Gouws, Professor of Political Science at Stellenbosch University. Professor Gouws, good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Yes, wonderful having you with us. Now, obviously, looking at President Ramaphosa, looking at his response to the debate, and also at the same time looking at what the opposition parties have had to say regarding SONA 2021. And according to the president, he says that, the last 2 days was little more than name-calling and mudslinging. And what he said is also that it is the business of the House to engage not in insults, but what is needed to restore confidence and bring stability to the country. Now, against the SONA speech that was given by the president and what some of the opposition parties have had to say, just looking at some of the criticisms that have been leveled, in your mind, have they been valid?
I think that they have been valid. I think there's great concern about the rollout of the vaccine and how that is going to be monitored. There's great concern about corruption in government, and there's also concern about the consequences of the pandemic. So job losses, the tourist industry, the manufacturing industry, and so on. And I don't think there was only name calling. There was some of that, but I also think there were valid concerns that needed to be addressed by the president.
Yes. Now, obviously, we've seen so much of the president, and some, call it an overdose of President Ramaphosa in the last year. And we've seen him on many occasions, obviously, with regard to disaster management, the regulations, and looking at, where we've been as far as the pandemic is concerned, getting regular updates. And looking at SONA 2021, and in fact, someone mentioned that, he could have just sent out a voice note because he hasn't been saying a lot different to instill that confidence in the country and its people.
No, the president continued to tell us what has been done in a very positive way. For example, that, we've got COVID relief, that he announced COVID relief measures, that we've got the vaccine now, that the agriculture sector has got great promise, that there's promise in the mineral and mining industry, that tourism is resilient, which I don't know why he says that. So he keeps on making these sort of very positive remarks about things that are really very serious. We know that, that people, we've lost about more than 1 million or nearly 2 million jobs in the past year. People are out of work. They are desperate, and, the president just does not engage that. And I also think the one thing that he really needed to engage was the issue of corruption. I mean, today, Ace Magashule is in court on the claims of corruption against him. The ANC and by the mouth of president keep on saying that we are dealing with corruption, but we don't see the evidence of that. The ANC has made it very clear in the last meeting's executive meeting again that people who are accused of corruption need to step aside. Now, here we have a couple of examples of people who've been accused and they do not step aside. So there seems to be no consequences if the ANC's own regulations are being ignored. And I mean, the president didn't say much about corruption in his response. So the response was, as far as I'm concerned, quite an empty response.
Also, Professor Gouws, when one looks at, President Ramaphosa, and as you mentioned, sending out certain positive messages. But again, the question would be, is this a case of spin doctoring? Because, we know that there is so much that is playing out behind the scenes. And for him personally, as the president of the country, for him as a member of the ANC, because again, when one looks at the instability within the ruling party, within government, the party infighting that is taking place as well. And, obviously trying to put up a positive face to the entire sagas that have been unfolding over a period of time. Would this be a case of just trying to spin doctor, for want of a better term?
Well, I'm not so sure that it's just spin doctoring. I think what it is that the president has put the ANC as a priority higher than the citizens of the country, because this is a message to deal with the lack of unity in the ANC. So if he says anything that rocks that boat, then his job becomes so much harder. But what that does is it creates a mistrust with the citizens. There is already a huge trust deficit, and this has not done anything to actually make that trust deficit smaller. On the contrary, people are looking at this and saying, the party that's governing us is doing this at the cost of what is good for the citizens. And, I keep thinking about the fact that there is no unity in the ANC. Why pretend that there is? And I think this part of the problem is to not rock the boat behind, on things that happens behind the scenes.
Yes, certainly. And I think the key issue here is, as a nation, do we have time to wait for the ANC, for the administration to stop fighting amongst themselves?
Well, this has been going on for more than a decade, so I don't think we should put our money on that happening. I'm not sure that the ANC can fix this. And so the question is, how long is the nation going to put up with this? And the part of the problem here is that there is no other credible party for people to vote for. But I'm thinking we're going to see a lower turnout in the upcoming local government elections, because people just don't want to vote anymore because they feel there's no party that's really worthy of their vote.
Now, just looking at, President Cyril Ramaphosa, and I know we know Julius Malema, somewhat of a maverick, and obviously he came out very, very strongly talking about the president being incompetent, incapacitated, and an unreliable human being. Now, these obviously were personal attacks on the president in terms of his ability to perform as the leader of the country, as the president of the country as well, Dr. Gouws.
Yes, well, we shouldn't forget that Julius Malema will take any opportunity he gets to just promote his own image, I think. Going off to Nkandla last week to speak to former President Zuma was another case of example of that. I don't think, that sort of the personal attack on President Ramaphosa was justified. But Malema gets political mileage out of this. And it's not a case that President Ramaphosa is incompetent. I think he's a very competent person, but his hands are tied in the situation that he inherited from the ANC.
Well, clearly, this is the case, and we've always said that he's caught between somewhat of a rock and a hard place. But at the end of the day, the country obviously seems to be going down. There doesn't seem to be a lot of confidence at this point in time. And again, we've even seen some members of parliament, talking about irrational decisions that have been made. And the key issue here at the end of the day is the country is suffering. We are in the middle of a pandemic. We were in dire straits economically even before the pandemic, and this is obviously worsened. And looking ahead, looking at the future of the country, at this point in time, many, many dark clouds that are hanging over the country.
Yes, that's unfortunately the case. This is exactly what we don't want. We've been nearly 1 year that we've been in lockdown. And so we know that the economy was really in a bad shape before lockdown, and it is worse now. And the government is really not telling us how they're going to deal with the problems. And the reason for that is that the state is more or less bankrupt. Yes. So there is no money, and so we need to have all this spin about the positive things, what's happening, in what the state has done. And then, even a positive comment about Eskom. And you think, on what planet does the president live to tell us that Eskom is doing really well when we've been having rolling blackouts again, or rolling load shedding in the last 2 weeks? So that's the problem. It's the citizens want some reinforcement about positive action by the government, not only words but action. So how is the government going to deal, for example, with job losses? And we can't only throw money at the problems to say, well, we'll increase the grants or so on. We need action to actually say we are going to, through some programs, create jobs. And, to say, yes, we're going to do it in the infrastructure industry or in the manufacturing industry, does us how that's going to happen. And I think it's about not so much now about hearing what's going to happen, but how it's going to happen.
Yes, and just finally, Professor Gouws, we know, and you mentioned Ace Magashule and his co-accused are appearing in the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court, and I think as we speak right now, the case is continuing. But also the other issue with regard to Jacob Zuma, because that is still going to be major, it's going to have major consequences for the country at this point in time.
Yes, and I think it was interesting to me that the Minister of Defence yesterday had to say, well, the veterans, they work alongside the National Defence Force, and this whole action about supporting Zuma is actually not acceptable. She felt the need to say that in Parliament. So we see how the Zuma faction and this alliance maybe now with Julius Malema is undermining the government, and this is just a continuation of the whole state capture saga that's been going on for the last 10 years. So I really think there's no reason for optimism. We should be really worried about the fact that the previous president got away with, not appearing, or I'm not sure if he's going to be arrested, but not appearing in front of the Zondo Commission. And then he's supported by Ace Magashule, who's the Secretary General of the ANC. It tells us that, if it comes to their own interest, because, of course, Magashule and others look at what's going to happen to Zuma because they know then it may also happen to them. So that's very important for them to support Zuma. But it's a very bad message if they get away with this type of behavior.
Well, Professor Amanda Gouws, thank you very much for that and for your time with us here on News and Views on Salam Media this morning. We wish you all the best. Please take care.
Pleasure. Goodbye.
Professor Amanda Gouws, Professor of Political Science at Stellenbosch University this morning, analyzing the President's response to SONA 2021 and the debate by opposition parties with regards to his fifth State of the Nation address.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042-203-1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
As winter grips the Northern Hemisphere, refugees, IDPs, and other vulnerable communities are doing all they can to survive. Winter is already the hardest time of year, and in the current global context, this year could be even worse. With your help, the Al Imdad Foundation is delivering life-saving winter warmth items in 12 countries globally, including Syria, Palestine, Yemen, Kashmir, and Pakistan. So be warm-hearted and sponsor a winter pack at just 600 Rand. Donate online at alimdad.com or call 0861 786 243 for more information.
Dad, well, I've been chatting with an investment broker today and...
Broker? Did the broker tell you that our economy is a mess? There's bushfires in Australia, America wanted World War III, and now the coronavirus